Either way, I'm recording now.
Okay.
Should we get the guitar and have a sing-along?
He's so keen for that.
Star Wars discussions. Get the guys on the
Welcome to the inaugural episode of The Panel on Big Screen TV. Beside me here I have Tom, and this is Dan. I'm Brendan. He's a pilot. We're not. That's all you really need to know for this episode. For those who are joining us for the first time, which is everyone, because this is the inaugural episode, so if you've seen this before, you're either a liar or slightly delusional. Either way, it's good to have you here on the show. But how the show works is this. Each week we discuss a topic, we debate a topic. We have three panellists on who discuss a movie or television related topic. And you can join the discussion as well. Let us know in the comments section below who you agreed with, or if you disagree with all of us, or anything that you'd like to add to the discussion, because there's probably lots to add that we're going to miss. And we're going to get into tonight's episode in just a second. But before we do that, tonight's episode, the topic is a Star Wars themed topic, so I thought it only appropriate, boys, if we talked about the trailer. I was going to say the new trailer, but it's not really new anymore, is it?
No.
So The Force Awakens, episode 7. The trailer has long dropped, which is something bad to say in this country. A long drop is an outdoor toilet, by the way, for those who don't know that. But what did you guys think of the trailer?
I thought it was good. It sort of showed what we wanted, what I think most people were hoping for from Star Wars. It had, that bit of action, a few of the cameos and stuff, and left enough unanswered questions to make us ready for the next trailer, which will hopefully come soon.
Yeah, that's pretty good call.
Yeah, I think for me, before the trailer came out, we'd obviously heard episode 7 was happening. I wasn't particularly hyped about it, and I think this trailer, initially I don't think even did too much to that, but I think, it just kind of gave me that little sense of, hey, this is actually happening, and it's going to be cool. And then obviously all the throwbacks, having the Millennium Falcon there, and especially at the end having Han and Chewie, that was my highlight. I was just like, that's pretty good. Han and Chewie.
See, that's my favourite moment. I think what I like about that moment is the fact that what I took from that was almost like J.J. Abrams saying to the audience, hey, don't worry, I've got this. I'm going to erase all of your bad, horrible memories from the prequels. and that iconic line, hey, we're home, to me was that, combined with everything else we saw in the trailer, was like, we're going to do this more to the traditional style of Star Wars rather than with lots of CGI and stuff like that.
Yeah, it had the same sort of feel as the older Star Wars films. I felt like with some of the shots of the action and the shooting and everything, it felt more like the old ones where you had the scope rather than focusing in on special effects specifically, which I enjoyed.
I love that droid. I couldn't believe that's actual real animatronic. And when they brought it out on stage at I think it was Comic-Con or one of the conventions, they brought it out and showed it working, and they showed some schematics a couple of days later for the actual engineering and the mechanics in it. It's a phenomenal piece of special effects work there.
Yeah, so cool.
Good stuff. Alrighty, so we're going to get into tonight's topic. It's Star Wars related. And the topic we're looking at tonight is, what was the worst thing about the Star Wars prequels? The single worst thing, or the worst, I guess, group of things about the Star Wars prequels. Now, we all agreed on one rule before we got together tonight, and that was this: that Jar Jar Binks was off the table. We all agreed that Jar Jar Binks is, I think this is universal sort of movie lore, Jar Jar Binks is not only the worst thing that has ever happened to Star Wars, but quite possibly he's the worst thing that has ever happened in the history of cinema, the racist cartoon rabbit, as we like to call him in this house. And so we decided he was off the table, because whoever played the Jar Jar Binks card was going to win the debate, right? So it's Trump anything, card. I guess the topic then is the worst thing about the prequels excluding Jar Jar Binks. So Tom, I'm going to start with you. What do you think was the worst thing about the prequels?
For me, the worst thing was all the politics and the government discussions and stuff. No one was watching episode 4. It's like, you know what this needs? Politics. I can't wait to see this government discuss those policies. Like, I felt like it just drew away from what Star Wars was. Star Wars was a space epic with these adventurers and heroes and action, and then all of a sudden we're down into these little political machinations, and this queen and that emperor, and this guy's going off and having a trade federation. I didn't know what was going on there, and it just, for me, got rid of that excitement that was building up and then it would lose it when it got to one
A
of those
lot of it
scenes.
doesn't even make sense either. So like,
No.
you have well, first of all, there's things like Queen Amidala then goes back to being a senator, and I was still. It took me a couple of movies to figure out. Oh, okay, so they have like a different way of doing things on this planet.
Yeah,
it wasn't obvious what was going on.
No,
you know? I was like, "There's a different
no.
character." Oh no, it's the same character, just in a different role. You know.
Yeah. They never really explained and gave context when you were there. They just thought, we'll just chuck you in, something will happen, and there'll be, look, lots of people meeting, and doesn't that look good?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it sort of had nothing more beyond that.
Yeah, and that Trade Federation dispute, which was the central thing, it doesn't make any sense. Why would a trade federation want to blockade trade? I still don't get a lot of what that actually meant.
True.
Dark side.
Yeah, the mind was clouded. Okay, Dan, what do you think? What was it for you?
I think first off, I'm just going to start off by saying that for me, I think I have a lesser hatred of the prequel trilogy than a lot of people.
Well, you can
do.
leave right now.
That's mainly, I was waiting for that. No, I think that mainly comes from the fact that because I wasn't around, I was really young even when episode 1 came out, so I saw the prequel trilogy before I saw the original ones.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go. So you saw them actually in the right, I guess the correct order you might call it.
Yeah,
What was it like
chronologically,
seeing the originals, so, episode 4, 5 and 6?
Yeah,
after seeing the prequels?
I think for me, as a kid, you like explosions and stuff like that, so the special effects, obviously now we know they're not so good, but at the time, all the CG and stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so going back to the original trilogy and seeing everything, it just looks a bit older, like the X-Wings look boxy and stuff compared to the Naboo starfighters and stuff.
If you could think of one thing about the prequels that you would do better, or you could have done better, what would you could have done?
One of the biggest problems is just the Emperor, like Sidious. They just, from the very start, they have this dude in a hood, and you can see most of his face. He's not even that well concealed. He's just like, Emperor?
You know that it's the Chancellor Palpatine from the very beginning.
From the very start, like when they first talk to him.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
well done on hiding that one, guys.
It's all of a sudden all the tension of the villain's gone. It's like, we know who you are.
He didn't consult M. Night Shyamalan on that twist really at all, did he?
Yeah.
No, not particularly.
Okay, that's an interesting point, and I remember picking up on that at the time and thinking, okay, this is clearly the bad guy.
Yeah.
There was nothing to differentiate. It was like at some point he's just going to end up in a hood.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
well,
You know
that
what's
happened,
gonna happen.
you know?
Yeah.
I think the thing for me that if I was to say what was wrong with the prequels, I guess you could sum it up like this. I think George Lucas knew where he wanted to get to, and that was the start of episode 4. He knew that's where he had to end up. And I think he knew a whole lot of elements that he wanted to include, but he did not know how to put this thing together coherently. I think the biggest thing he probably did was he forgot all of the original rules that made Star Wars so great. The whole thing was shot, for example, it's all shot against blue screen. And there was such an overuse of CGI. Originally, it was more sort of animatronics and models and real environments and sets.
Miniatures and stuff.
Yeah, and now that's all gone. You've got everything, just total overabundance of CGI. A lot of the ships, even originally in the original films, he had this thing about used space. So you got the sense that you could actually not only see the dirt and the grime on ships and things like that, but you could also see the logic of how they actually worked. So in X-Wing, you can kind of see the mechanics with the parts and the things on it. Well, some of those newer ships, you just couldn't see that. He sort of threw all that out the window.
Yeah, they're all just shiny.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. You can't tell what's going on. And I think too, I have a suspicion he started out perhaps along an idea that might have paid off, but then he got bogged down.
You got lost in it.
Well, I think, because I tell you why I say that. There are things that I think really stick out. Like, for example, there are things that he's put in the prequels that make key moments of 4, 5 and 6 now. They don't make sense anymore. No. You know, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you strike me down, I become more powerful. And all of a sudden, that doesn't make any sense anymore. The midichlorians versus, all of these things that just... And then the whole thing of, this is a kid's movie, he tried to say later, when people said to him, what about these crazy sort of confused things that don't make sense? He said, this is a children's movie, but then this is a children's movie with rape. Anakin's mother, remember, gets caught with the sand people, with kids being killed in the third movie, like the young Jedis get killed and slaughtered. The Trade Federation disputes.
I'm so glad I'm not his kid.
I think we found the biggest problem is they just missed their target audience.
Who was
like a
he aiming for?
stormtrooper.
Yeah.
You know what I actually wonder? I wonder whether he was thinking, okay, this is my chance to really blow people's minds, and I'm going to really impress the fans by adding in all of this Star Wars lore, and that's why we got the Trade Federation disputes. That a lot of the fanboys, they love that kind of, who is that senator, and what's their relation to the Senate, and how do they play out in the rebellion? And I think he just went overboard with that sort of stuff, not realising that we actually don't want that.
Because it sort of plays out like a fan fiction almost, with all those details being added in that fit into this bigger universe that are never explained and never referenced in any other way. And then the romance, even that felt tacked on as like, this will be something that will be really fun and exciting without any necessity to it.
And weren't they terrible, those love scenes, the way they were written? And the other thing about Anakin is, like, Hayden Christensen's not a bad actor. I've seen him in other movies, and he's actually
in other movies,
look in Jumper. I think he's not a bad actor, but in this one clearly he wasn't getting good direction, and the dialogue he's working with is just terrible. And his character, as a result, comes across as this really weird, whiny stalker, and his journey to Anakin, to Darth Vader, doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
It's almost like you're watching it, watching, bang, he becomes Darth Vader. It's like, well, why? Yeah. Why would he do that? You know, just because his friend the Emperor got lightning
so
on
true.
him?
All of a sudden, I feel left out. Hey, you should kill Mace Windu for me. Okay, I'm bad now. I suppose
I'll go full dark side now. You know, it's like, why did he do that?
Like, I love how he just like immediately questions it, feels the guilt, and then goes, whatever.
Yeah. I have this theory that in actual fact, if they'd made a movie or a set of movies more along the lines of Chronicle, you guys seen Chronicle?
Yeah.
Chronicle to me is probably the perfect example of what Anakin's backstory should have looked like. This guy who you can imagine him perhaps being Obi-Wan's cousin, which is perhaps why he's able to get trained, because why would they train him otherwise? Obi-Wan goes, perhaps Anakin's mother dies, his father is a bully, he's abusive or something like that. Anakin goes back to the funeral and realises something happens where there's just this display of emotional something that causes Anakin to display force powers that are more powerful than anything Anakin's seen, and he realises this guy is powerful, we've got to train him, otherwise the dark side will get him, and it all goes wrong from there. And basically like that guy in Chronicle where he's bullied and he's got all these powers he doesn't know how to handle. That would have been an amazing story, I think. And what we ended up with.
And it would have made you sympathise with Anakin as well, because as it ends up, like you were saying, he sort of just twists all of a sudden, and you don't sympathise with him. It doesn't add any emotional depth to him, it just sort of makes him Darth Vader.
I think the only emotional depth there comes with that final battle scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and it's all on Obi-Wan's part. You kind of like, you feel for Obi-Wan losing his like brother,
having to chop his friends legs off, or
but Anakin, you're just like, just burn.
Just put him in a mask and we can get on with it. Forget all of this. Let's talk about the Force. What did you say? Because you saw the prequels and then the originals.
Yeah.
Tell me, did you notice a difference between the Force powers in the original films and the prequels?
The implementation? Or
I guess the implementation. So there's the midichlorians.
Yeah.
The fact that I guess the power of the Jedi seems more powerful in the originals. The originals, even though they come after.
Yeah. I suppose, they took it's almost like two completely separate stories of what the Force is. Like the midichlorians thing, they take this kind of biological approach to it. There's this thing that kind of connects us to the Force. And in the original trilogy, the Jedi just learned to master this Force, which is this kind of just omnipresent
metaphysical
thing.
And it was weird, like the ridiculous virgin birth thing that he did for Anakin, and it was like
it wasn't necessary. Like I felt like it just sort of added an idea that actually went nowhere.
No, that's right. And it kind of doesn't make sense either, because it's like, well, so clearly I guess he's trying to make out that he's almost divine in a way, and that's why he's so all-powerful. But really, at the end of the day, you'd possibly argue the Emperor actually has slightly more power than Darth Vader does, of the Force and things like that, and yet he clearly wasn't some sort of miraculous miracle birth or anything. So why do you even need that?
It actually, again, it just went nowhere. It started off as this idea. I felt that happened with a lot of the ideas with the Force and the way even the Jedi Council was set up. It was these ideas that they started in episode 1 or 2, and by 3 he saw there's no way to fit it in with 4, 5, 6. So that's what it's got tossed out.
Well, and some of by the end he wasn't even trying. So you remember if you go back and watch I think is it Return of the Jedi, where Luke is talking to Leia and asking, does she remember her parents? And she says, I remember my mother. Well, clearly she couldn't have remembered her mother at all, and that makes no sense now based on what we know about Padme and her death. And so, well, why didn't he bother to actually check that what he was writing is consistent with what's to come? I'll tell you what, the one thing that I think really annoyed me a lot was it seemed that the Force was actually weaker in the prequels, which is when they are supposed to be at their peak. So Yoda can't tell. Well, I guess even forget about the Force. Here's this guy who's supposed to be a celibate Jedi who's gone and secretly got married, and his wife is living right across the road from the Jedi temple. She can see the temple out the window. He's anxious about things. He's always talking about saving his loved ones. He's actually telling Yoda the stuff, and not once did Yoda go, this doesn't make sense. He just sort of goes, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. And yet, this is supposed to be the peak of their Jedi powers. In the other movies, they seem the Jedi's actually seem to be able to sense things.
They pick up on anything.
More.
Yeah, actually, that's something that doesn't make sense. Is they talk about the dark side clouding their vision in the prequels. Even though theoretically the dark side is more powerful once they come into power in the original trilogy, and yet they don't have any problem then.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that suddenly goes away.
Once again, not coherent, eh?
No.
So let's finish by talking about what do you think could be done. I guess maybe the question is, what do we not want to see happen in the than 7, 8 and 9? What could Lucas have done better to fix the prequels, and what do you want to avoid in 7, 8 and 9?
I feel like in the prequels, what should have been done is, rather than trying to open it up to all these different worlds and all the councils and all the governments, narrowing it down, getting down just to one planet and one family and a few people would have been exciting, because then you develop the emotional weight and the connection with the characters that when it blows up into a galactic war in 4, 5, 6, you have that weight behind it all of a sudden, which I felt like was missing from 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Okay. What about you, Dan? Well, you're a bit more of a fan, so you're
a bit more of a fan, but
Emperor put him in a mask or something.
I think, regarding the prequels, I think the biggest thing that he could have done to avoid any problems is, you'd think, just have a good sit down with a bit of a spreadsheet and plan it out beforehand.
Someone teach him how to use Excel. I didn't know this time.
Yeah, and then as regards episode 7, I hope that JJ just, I don't know, sticks to what made the original ones good, and he obviously is looking that way, looking promising with animatronics and models that he's using and stuff like that.
I think one thing probably that Lucas could have done, or like some things that he could have done, was, I've already talked about making it more coherent and everything else. I think perhaps what he should have done was collaborated a lot more. He did that in the other movies. In fact, that most people would agree that Empire Strikes Back is the best of all of the Star Wars films, and he didn't direct or write that.
No.
Now, why I'm excited about that is that the guy Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote that, is actually writing episode 7, and he's got a lot of good movies. You go and look up Lawrence Kasdan on IMDb and you'll see he's got some amazing movies in the last sort of 20, 30 years to his name. He's a good screenwriter. But that film, Empire, wasn't directed and wasn't written by Lucas, and clearly his hand is still on the special effects. So I think what he should have done was collaborated more, and I think that would have avoided a lot of these issues. And like you say, I think the one thing that really stuck out for me was, we heard a lot about the Clone Wars in the first films. Then we go back and it's kind of like, this doesn't really seem like a war. It seems like a whole lot of little battles, almost like police action rather than a war. And if you look at Coruscant, for example, it's not like all of a sudden they're starving and the Hunger Games comes in because they haven't got enough food, and this war doesn't seem to mean anything, So I would have liked to have seen the scale of that go much bigger, and like you say, at the same time, tighten in on the actual Skywalker family and really focus in on that.
And that's what it looks like it's happening in episode 7, because just from the trailer you get to see a few characters who look as though they're not just main characters, but there's actually going to be this development and intense focus on them, which is what I felt was missing from the first few. From the prequels, I mean, and we'll hopefully now be able to get back into with these new ones.
Tell me, have either of you guys watched either of the cartoon series that came out? Rebels.
I've avoided that. I don't want to risk it, and I've heard it's good, but I'm just like,
I tell you what, I watched with my children. So Clone Wars, I did resist watching Clone Wars. I watched a couple of episodes and I just thought, I didn't get into it. Well, I've gone back now that we've got Netflix, and then the girls love it, so we watch it a lot more. I'm sure we do. Dad, come on, we're watching this, kids, and you'll love it. It's actually quite good. It is quite good. Rebels was really good. It has a lot more of the elements, I think, of the original films, and so that makes it a bit better. What about the spin-off movies that they're talking about? So they got 7, 8 and 9, but what about these?
So there's what they're thinking. People are assuming one will be Boba Fett.
Yeah. Or no, apparently one is what they're saying there is one apparently is they're rebels who steal the plans for the original Death Star, and that starts that opening scene in Star Wars, A New Hope, where they're chasing them. So that group there. So the mission is them stealing those plans, and then there's one about Boba Fett. Well, that's a suggestion anyway.
I'm hesitant. I don't know, I love the Star Wars films, but I am just worried they're going to try and just throw out any story idea, any sort of thing they can chuck in there just to get another movie made.
Yeah.
And so I think 7, 8, 9 can be justified, have a new trilogy, but all these spin-offs, I'm just worried it'll just become bloated.
I'm always excited to get a bit of expanded fiction around a franchise, as long as it's done well. Obviously, we don't know much at this point about what these spin-off movies are actually going to entail. I find it hard to imagine how they're going to do a full feature length out of some people stealing some plans, but they'll manage.
Especially when we
They
know
always
the
do.
outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah, ooh, such high stakes.
Although, if they do them like Marvel sort of crafted its films, how they have quite different genres with each one, that could be actually quite exciting. Like, if
That's
you get
true.
these spin-offs being sort of the smaller niche styles, like your original Thor was quite this wacky style compared to your Iron Mans.
Yeah.
It
And
could
look
work well.
at Captain America 2. Winter Soldier is still, I think most fans would say, is the best Marvel film,
Yep.
and it's not an
Yeah.
Avengers movie.
No.
It's the secondary sort of
Yeah,
layer.
it's a very
so,
different style.
You know?
It's quite a pivotal movie, though. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
I see what
true.
you mean.
So I guess maybe they might do that with. I have to be honest, within me, when I heard about these spin-offs, that's when I got a little bit worried because I thought, okay, they're selling it to Disney. That's cool. It makes sense,
Yeah.
and I was happy because I thought George Lucas is actually going to surrender this for once,
Yeah.
which is good. And then when I heard about 7, 8, 9, yes, brilliant. This makes sense, and especially with who was involved.
Yep.
Then I heard about the spin-offs, and I thought, okay. Clearly,
Yeah.
I mean, well, you hope it's not, but it seems it's just a cash grab
Yeah.
because it's such a hot property. But and the
Yeah.
worry is that could, like, say, it could bloat it or it could ruin it. If one of those movies is not well written and produced and put together,
Yeah.
you could end up with a scenario where it would actually could have an impact on
Exactly.
the other.
And that would
main
depend on
movies.
how pivotal those movies are to the main storyline. If they're needed or if they in some way affect it, then if one of those bombs will destroy the whole thing.
Yeah.
If they are just spin-offs that have no real effect on what's going on, then it may
Yeah.
not be too much of an issue.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you try and spin that though. One, if you have a
Yeah.
spin-off that doesn't, it'd be like, imagine if Marvel just put out a movie that had nothing to do
Yeah.
with the main plot of the Marvel universe
Yeah.
they're driving. It would be
It'd be
kind of a
hard.
bit odd, you know.
Yeah, that's what Ant-Man looks like, but it will take. But, yeah. But I'm a little bit concerned that, yeah, like we're saying, that if one movie comes out and it's bad, it could ruin it. And I think that's, this is kind of jumping to another franchise here, but with Halo, the game, like for years there's been movies rumored and they've canned it a number of times because I think they're too scared
Yeah.
that it'll come out and people won't accept it and they're taking their time. And I think I'm worried with this many Star Wars movies being greenlit at once.
Yeah, it's so close together.
You're just being,
Yeah.
it's very, very risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do wonder, I guess they're almost, you get the sense they're trying to fill the gaps too for people's anticipation between the main
Yeah,
ones.
true.
But the risk is, I mean, they'll obviously involve lots of different directors, but the risk is,
Yeah.
you know.
True.
Yeah.
I think it all just comes down to everyone's trying to be Marvel and just more and more movies.
Speaking of, that's where we're going to end it today. Our next episode of the panel, we're going to be talking about the new Mad Max movie, and we're going to be asking the question: has Mad Max Fury Road thrown a spanner in the works for the Marvel universe because of the fact there's a lot of practical effects involved, and in this movie Mad Max Fury Road has really it was an amazing action film that we haven't seen this kind of film in a while, and Marvel was ticking along quite nicely with a sort of very CGI driven action, and all of a sudden, you know, Mad Max has come out. So we'll explore that question: is it going to throw, and I guess talk about some of the other Marvel related questions next time on our next episode of the panel. Thanks for watching. He's Tom, this is Dan, I'm Brendan. We'll see you next time on the panel. Bye bye.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.